Hey guys, welcome back to Prepping in Progress. I'm Kim, and it's going to be a Christmas special. Steve kind of teased everybody about my Christmas story, and we seem to get a lot of interest of people wanting to hear why I love Christmas so much, and this is my favorite time of year, so I thought I'd share this story. It is a very personal story, and one that really I think goes to the heart of why I love this season so much. It started way back when. I don't want to give away my age, but say early 80s when I was really young. I was one of four kids to a not so well off family. Needless to say, we were pretty poor. Um, Making it, but just barely. My parents were very young when they were married, and they got a lot of help from family, but it was still very difficult for them to make ends meet and to make it as a young couple in a not so great part of the country that there's not a lot of opportunities for two young people. My dad was lucky enough to just be out of the military and got a job as a truck driver, but my mom, with only a ninth grade education, pretty much just stayed home with us kids. Like I said, there was four of us, so that was a full-time job for her. It was a very happy home, though. My dad purposely made sure he only took jobs that allowed him to be home every single night. His way of putting it is he will never be a part-time dad, and he never was. He still isn't. I'm a daddy's girl at heart, so it was wonderful having a dad home every single night. At that time, he was working for a construction company, and I don't know if most of y'all know, construction really slows down in the winter months, which makes Christmas seasons very hard to save up money for when work is slowed down quite a bit. So if I can set the scene a little bit, you have a very young couple with four children ranging from the age of 3 years old to 9. I was right smack in the middle, about 5 years old. We had just moved into our own place. Like I said, my dad was fresh out of the military, and we had been staying with some family, but we had gotten our first place, and we were really excited about living there. It was a very small trailer in a not great part of Little Rock, but it's what my parents could afford, and they were quite proud of it since they were the ones doing it. But their money was pretty much all tied up in the house and keeping the lights on, pretty much, with a very small income from my dad and none coming from my mom. So Christmas came around, and though we were young, we were quite aware that, unlike other kids, we didn't have a lot. And Christmas Eve was a bit of a shock because everybody else seemed to be decorating and talking about Santa and what they were going to get, and we couldn't even afford to put a tree up. My parents they spent all their money making sure the lights stayed on, let alone being able to afford Christmas lights. So we went and were put to bed, and my parents were very apologetic and still assured us that we were very good kids and that they loved us very much. But we had to go to sleep knowing that there probably wouldn't be any big celebration the next day. But my parents, being warm and loving as they were, still tried to make us feel special. We would play games and try to do things that didn't cost anything, having fun with, many siblings, and, we would wrestle and tell stories and, have a good time. And my parents tried very, very hard to still make it a special time of year for us. But it was still hard going as a very young child, going to bed, knowing that we weren't going to really have a Christmas the next day. So we were all tucked off to bed, and went to bed and went to have sweet dreams, and woke up the next morning kind of at our usual time with no really that Christmas anticipation that a lot of kids feel. We really didn't have that. We just kind of woke up and wandered into the living room, and lo and behold, there was a beautifully decorated Christmas tree with presents all around it, and to a 5-year-old, it was magical. And with eyes lit up, we're shaking each other, and you're, oh my goodness, there's presents for you, there's presents for me. We all ran to our parents' bedroom, waking them up, mom, dad, wake up, Santa came. Ecstatic young children, and that joy and that excitement, it stayed with me for years. That anticipation, that surprise, absolute wonderment, because there was no explanation for it other than Santa had come and surprised us. And my parents, of course, being like they are, they're like, oh yes, we told you that y'all were so good this year, look what happened, look at all these presents, and oh, they're all from Santa, isn't that so great? And we sat around and had the most magical Christmas morning. You know, it wasn't a lot, but I mean, for kids that went to bed with absolutely nothing the night before, to wake up to this dream just kind of appearing overnight was the most magical thing I think I've ever experienced in my life. And it went on that every year Christmas was just, it stayed magical. It stayed just this era of wonder and not knowing and anticipation and miracles in a sense. It wasn't till about 10 years later, when I was about 15 years old, that I finally was going to ask my dad about that night, because it stayed with me so profoundly. And for that entire time, I believed in Santa. At 15 years old, I still believed that there was a Santa Claus out there, because I knew what kind of situation we were in. Especially even more so growing up, of realizing just how poor we really were. That I finally cornered my dad, and I was saying, okay, look, I have to know the story. I have to know how that was even possible. What happened? There's no way somebody snuck into our house and put up a Christmas tree. What happened? And so my dad, just with a big smile on his face, said, okay, but I don't want to ruin the magic for you. And I'm like, no, please tell me what happened. And he goes, okay, Christmas Eve, I was quite upset. You know, with 4 little ones, you want to make their Christmases perfect. And as a dad, that was my job. And I couldn't do it. All my money was tied up. And just being able to put food on the table and keep lights on in the house. And, he said, went out to a few stores and trying to see what was open left. And knowing he didn't have any money, he was just going to, I hate to say it, may have tried something not on the most legal side, but he was a good man and he really didn't want to do that. But he was trying to think of a pawn shop that might have still been open, that he could go pawn something, but he really didn't have much to pawn. And by that time, most of them had already closed. I do believe it was Walmart was managing to stay open for a little bit longer, but they were getting ready to close down Christmas Eve. And he was just standing there staring up at the store, trying to rack his brain for any way to make Christmas possible for his children, because he adored us, still does. I mean, we're the lights of his life. He's a dad first and foremost. And so for that kind of person to not being able to share that wonder for his kids and to make their first Christmas in this house the most special it could be, he felt really downtrodden and kicked around, and he didn't know how to come out of that, and he didn't even want to go home and face that house and face us the next morning and see the kind of sadness on our eyes. He was trying to figure out something to do. And he said, standing there in the parking lot, he said, this old man just kind of walked up out of nowhere and said, sorry, this gets me, God told me to give this to you. Merry Christmas. And handed him $200. My dad was just struck speechless. He just, how did this guy know? Who was this guy? I'd never seen him before. We're talking Little Rock. It's not the most friendliest town. And for someone just to come out of nowhere and just hand somebody $200, and we're talking in the 80s, it's still quite a bit of money nowadays, but even more back then. He said before he could even ask the guy a single question, he just kind of smiled and turned around and walked away. And still kind of standing there speechless, my dad was just overwhelmed with gratitude and giving thanks. He ran into the store, bought a small tree, a few ornaments, a bunch of presents for us kids. He spent every last penny on us and got it all loaded up, ran back to the house, got my mom up, and they stayed up till 2 a.m. decorating the tree, wrapping presents, and getting ready, and finally got to bed, only for us to wake them up a few hours later screaming about Santa Claus. And as he was telling me this, and I'm like, this is wonderful. I said, this doesn't destroy anything for me. I said, it reinforces what I thought all these years, that Santa Claus had come after all. And I don't see, and people may pick on me about calling it Santa Claus, and you can call it whatever you want to, the spirit of giving, the spirit of God, whatever name you want to attach to it. This time of year, that giving nature is manifest so much this time of year. And me being so grateful looking back at it, now knowing the full story, how much of a wonderful gift that was to a very poor family, makes me love this season every single year, and the givingness of it. And it's what I strive to be for myself, and I hope you all strive that this time of year you give of yourself, you give to your family, you give to those less fortunate. And it is a time for us to embrace and give thanks and to give of ourselves more. And that's why I absolutely love this time of year, because I never lost that wonderment that I felt at 5 years old, walking in there and just knowing that a miracle had happened and witnessing that. And then even years later, knowing the true story of hearing about a wonderful miracle that had happened. And it just makes me embrace this time of year so much more. And I try to bring that wonderment to my own family, to other families, to share that joy of this season. And I hope y'all all get the opportunity as well to give of yourselves the love and tenderness and kindness that this season brings out in people. So, all right, guys, that's my Christmas story. If y'all have any of your own, please feel free to share it. And I wish everybody out there a wonderful Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, season's greetings, and hopefully a good New Year, but I hope to see you before then. All right, guys, I love y'all very much. Thank y'all so much for joining me, and hope this touched your hearts as much as it touched mine. So, and to my special Santa Claus out there, who I'll probably never get to thank, God knows who you are. And I hope to say thank you. All right, guys, God bless.